So I've been practicing law for 23 years. For the last 2 years, I've kind of been thinking about trying to shift my focus out of private practice into something service oriented. I really feel like in terms of legacy, people are most proud when they, at the end of their career, can show what they've given back to a community rather than sort of what they've acquired. I've gained a lot of knowledge in private practice. I had a wonderful practice, but I feel like it's my time to do something that gives back to the community.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, we look at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. And today's guest has spent over 20 years helping communities solve problems, settle disputes, and navigate complicated legal issues. She's an HOA attorney, a Florida Supreme Court certified circuit civil mediator, and has served as a special magistrate hearing property tax appeals, and is currently running for Orange County Judge Group 5. Please welcome Asima Azam. Did I say that right?
It's Asima Azam.
Asima Azam. Okay, I'll remember that. But thank you for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so Asima, for kids listening, what exactly is an HOA attorney?
So I would just say I'm generally a real estate attorney. I kind of do all things related to real estate and land use, but HOA specifically, I do a lot of creation. So let's say there's a condominium down by Lake Eola. It has 400 units in it. Before you decide you want to build the condominium, you have to get approvals from Orange County, and then you have to file paperwork from the state about what you're going to build and create. So I do a lot of that work. Then once the building's created, before you sell the units, you have to adopt rules for the building. Those would be things like, very simple cases that I've had is if you live in the penthouse of a condominium, you can't put tile in. Why wouldn't you be able to put tile in? Because the people walking around in the morning at 3 a.m. would cause a bunch of noise that would ricochet down the building. So that's one rule.
That's fair.
There's a lot of rules related to pets, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what representing an HOA is like.
So what made you decide to become a lawyer?
I, in high school, was really into high school debate. I was very good with extemporaneous speaking. And so I went to nationals my sophomore year. And it's kind of naturally being able to quick think on my feet and do extemporaneous speaking made me think that I would be a good fit for law school.
All right, so did you know when you were my age that law would be your career?
It was kind of a goal, only because I've always been a good public speaker. I have children around your age, and I always tell them, by now you should be able to know whether, like you can speak quickly with an audience, and it doesn't scare you, it doesn't cause you any anxiety. If it does, then there's a lot of careers, like being a lawyer, that would be a natural good fit.
Yeah. All right, so what subjects did you enjoy most in school?
Definitely reading and writing. Reading, writing, public speaking. A lot of lawyers don't do a lot of public speaking. Most of the job is reading, analyzing what you're reading, and writing, and coming up with arguments based on what you've read.
That's fair. So how did your education prepare you for becoming an attorney?
My undergraduate education or my high school? So in high school, I did a lot of classes that involved a lot of reading and analytical writing, and same for law school and undergrad. In undergrad, I did a lot of work related to neighborhoods and communities and zoning and planning, which a lot of people don't realize is a big part of a real estate lawyer's law practice.
So do people, most people, understand what HOA attorneys actually do?
It is kind of a niche practice, but when I explain it to people, Florida has probably the most homeowners associations in any state in the country. So when I talk to people about it, they immediately have an issue to tell me. But the way I explain it is homeowners associations are kind of little corporations, like little cities within a city, and they need guidance. And in Florida, they're governed by a statute, and the statute's complicated, and they need an attorney to sort of tell them how to understand the statute.
Yeah. So how did you become involved in HOA and condominium law?
When I was in law school, I interned at a law firm, and that is the work that they did. So I learned it kind of from there.
That's fair. So you represent more than 100 communities. So what does like a normal day look like for you?
So I try to think of some interesting examples. One case that I have going on right now is a community that restricts the number of pets that you have in communities. It's very common for homeowners associations to restrict people from having more than two dogs or two cats, or because they don't want one person to have multiple animals. And then obviously they have rules about walking the animals, etc. A lot of them have rules about breeds as well. So I have a case in a community that had restrictions on the size of dog you could have. It was, you can't have a dog over, I think, the size of 50 pounds. However, they had an individual that said they were going to appeal compliance with that rule because their dog was an emotional support animal. So that's a federal law that basically says HOAs can't prohibit certain animals if they're emotional support animals. So the association consulted me. They sort of got the documentation, determined that this dog was an emotional support animal, and then that emotional support animal actually got into a fight with another animal, and one of the animals died. And so it's been a big case of mine. That's not something that I think people normally think about when they think about homeowners association law, but that's absolutely the type of stuff that goes on in communities.
All right. So what's the most unusual HOA dispute that you've ever encountered?
I've had a lot of very complex ones. A lot of homeowners associations, you've probably seen that there is a guardhouse and they control access, and that leads to a lot of problems. It's probably not unusual, but probably the scariest. In one of my communities, we've had some violent crime because the guard was not watching, and some individuals got into the community. And so from the association's perspective, they advertise to everybody that it's not their job to control access. The guardhouse is just there as an amenity, but of course they get dragged into it. So that's probably one of my, most stressful cases.
So do people ever come to you when emotions are running really, really high?
Yeah. Most homeowners association cases are very emotional because the individuals are neighbors. And they get very upset. And then people also don't understand that even if you own your home, the association's able to restrict kind of what you do with the home. So I have a lot of people that will get upset and say, hey, it's my private property. I'll paint the fence purple if I want to paint the fence purple. And then we come back and we say, well, you bought into this community and there's all these rules that you have to comply with.
Yeah. So what skills help you stay calm when people disagree?
So I also do mediation a lot. And I feel like in mediation is really when you have to get both sides to calm down, because both sides come really emotionally charged and feeling like they're right. And so really what you have to do, we call it letting the individuals feel heard, really let them tell their side of the story and understand their side of the story. And you have to get them to trust you. Once you really listen and understand their side of the story and sort of repeat it back to them, then you can kind of sit down with them rationally and say, listen, I understand what you're upset about. I would be upset about that too. But when we look at bigger picture, and what the impact is going to be if this issue doesn't resolve, either you're going to go to litigation or it's going to cost you a lot of money. Let's come up with a solution that you feel like you could live with. Not your number one top solution, but it's something that you feel like you could live with.
Yeah. So what advice would you give kids about handling disagreements with classmates?
Kind of the same thing. A lot of times when individuals come to me with disputes, they talk about a lot of stuff that's irrelevant to the dispute. Just like, well, last year, they did this to me and they called me a name and it doesn't have anything to do with the dispute. So I call it narrowing the scope of the issue to try and say, we're not thinking about the stuff that happened last year. We're not thinking about the stuff that happened last week. We are specifically only talking about this issue. Yeah. And then when you talk about this issue, what is it specifically about this issue that's upsetting you? And what could you live with to fix it?
That's fair. So do you think fairness is harder than people realize?
No, I mean, I feel like in its simplest term, and I've said this in like judicial forums, with a bunch of lawyers present, fairness just means giving every single person notice and an opportunity to be heard. So if you're enforcing something, if there's some rule in any capacity at a school, with a parent, with a court of law, I think fairness means the person that you're enforcing the rule against has to have notice of the rule. They have to know what the rule was and what they were required to do to comply. And if they broke the rule, you have to give them an opportunity to explain the context in which it was broken. Because that makes all the difference. And that's basic, that's fairness. Yeah. In every forum.
Yeah, that's fair. So what's one thing people misunderstand about HOA attorneys?
I feel like people think that HOA attorneys are just trying to make their life miserable, and controlling what they're doing with their house. But really, at the end of the day, the rules are for people, who live in the community. Like the simplest example would be if you buy a home in a community and your next door neighbor decides they don't feel like mowing the lawn and they let the lawn grow up 4 feet high, which has happened in multiple communities that I represent, that's going to impact the value of your house. So the reason you bought into the community is so you don't have to say anything to the neighbor yourself. I can do that job for you. And that's just one little example.
All right. So, I think this is a great time, to take a quick commercial break. So, let's just hear a word from our sponsors.
Okay. Sounds great.
So you want to make an ad for your company, right?
Yeah, Tiberius, you want to help me?
Okay, so what's the name of the company?
PPWND.
PP what?
Professional Pressure Washing and Detailing.
So you clean driveways?
Yeah, like that. We pressure wash commercial buildings and semi-truck and trailers.
So how would someone get a hold of you?
They can visit my site at ppwnd.com or call me at 407-900-7793.
So I just tell them to call you at 407-900-7793 or visit ppwnd.com?
Yeah, Tiberius, you got it.
Cut! That's a wrap! Just use that.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
And we're back here with Asima Azam. So, Asima, you're currently running for Orange County Judge Group 5.
I am.
So, what inspired you to run for judge?
So I've been practicing law for 23 years. For the last 2 years, I've kind of been thinking about trying to shift my focus out of private practice into something service-oriented. I really feel like in terms of legacy, people are most proud when they, at the end of their career, can show what they've given back to a community rather than sort of what they've acquired. I've gained a lot of knowledge in private practice. I had a wonderful practice, but I feel like it's my time to do something that gives back to the community.
Yeah. So for kids listening, what does a county judge actually do?
So I talked to a few high school kids a couple weeks ago, and I started sort of with step one. There's levels of judges. There's county court judge, there's circuit court judge, there's the Court of Appeals, and then there's the Florida Supreme Court. So Orange County has its county court, and then Osceola has its county court. And then when you get to the circuit court level, Orange and Osceola share their circuit court judges. County court specifically hears lower level claims. We call it a lower jurisdictional limit. Mm-hmm. So it would be any dispute that the value in controversy is less than $50,000. So it could be a breach of contract. It could be a landlord-tenant issue. It could be,
Vandalism.
Any kind of, issue where the amount in controversy is less than $50,000. It also hears misdemeanors, so not felonies, but misdemeanors,
Okay.
traffic-related misdemeanors, small amounts of drug possession, basically anything that's punishable by up to $1,000 fine or 1 year of jail time.
Okay. So I always thought like you had to be a criminal attorney to be a judge. So what qualifies to make someone a great judge?
So county courts hears criminal and civil, and that is a common misconception. More than 80% of the cases filed in county court are actual civil cases and not criminal cases.
Really?
It's a lot of landlord-tenant, a lot of foreclosure, a lot of breach of contract. There's some family law cases, a lot of lower jurisdictional level cases. So yeah, you do not need to be criminal. But I will say one thing that's interesting, I also talked about this in high school, one judge will hear civil and criminal. They rotate you through. So even though majority of my experience is in civil, you learn the other side. Nobody elected is going to have experience in both. So a lot of the judges that currently sit on the bench right now came from a criminal background, but they hear a lot of civil cases as well. So, and that's true with lawyers as well. One thing that I think is interesting when you're looking at careers, when you graduate from law school, unlike a doctor, you don't have a specialty yet. You can decide the day after graduate that you want to go into criminal or that you want to go into civil. And in smaller towns, there's attorneys that do both.
Yeah, that's fair. So how important is fairness in the courtroom?
It is paramount. It's the number one issue, obviously. You can't hold somebody responsible for violating a rule, breaching a contract, or committing a crime if they didn't have notice of it and they don't have an opportunity to tell their side of the story.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, context is everything.
So do judges have to leave their personal opinions out of their decisions?
Yes, absolutely. You cannot being a judge is very, very different than being an advocate. You are hearing both sides of the story as an impartial, neutral third party who is going to listen to all the facts from both parties that are affected and then issue an opinion or a judgment that they feel like applies the law in a manner that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. So how have your 20 plus years as an attorney prepared you for the bench?
So, there's a couple things that I talk about. One is I've seen a lot of different types of cases. My primary area of practice was HOA law, but I've done everything. I've just done general business litigation. I've done some slip and fall cases. I've done a lot of landlord-tenant. I've done a lot of foreclosure. But one of the things I think that sort of sets me apart from a lot of other candidates is I've sat in a lot of what we call quasi-judicial positions on the Board of Zoning Adjustment and then also as a special magistrate. And then also as a mediator where I am sitting not as an advocate but as a neutral third party, making findings of fact, taking testimony, and then applying the law and then making a decision that impacts the parties, which is the job of a judge.
Yeah. So you've also served as a special magistrate. So what exactly does that role involve?
So that's a complicated role to describe to children, but I'll try to think of something interesting that I had recently. So basically, I was a special magistrate for the Orange County Tax Collector. The Orange County Tax Collector assesses taxes against different parties. Obviously, there's like residential properties, there's commercial properties, and then there's exemptions for things like educational institutions. So one interesting case that I had was the UCS downtown campus. And their downtown campus has a lot of UCF students. It has a lot of Valencia students. It has housing in the building. And then it also has a floor with commercial that has Chick-fil-A and I think a Starbucks in there. And so the law, most simply stated, gives educational institutions like UCF or Valencia an exemption from paying taxes. So the discussion that came before me was, okay, so the classrooms that they're being taught in, those obviously get an exemption. Do the rooms that the kids sleep in get an exemption? Yes, because the kids can't go to school there without having a room to sleep in. Does the Starbucks and Chick-fil-A get an exemption? So is that a necessary use for the education or not? But that's just one sort of example of, the kind of thing that the tax collector considers. So that was one sort of.
Why does everything have to
interesting
be
case.
so hard?
Yeah. So
Why?
that makes kind of what's usually like a boring tax issue a little bit more interesting.
Like, why?
Yeah.
That doesn't make no sense. Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but like, what's the biggest challenges that judges face today?
I think the biggest challenge that judges face, number one, is the workload. There is way too many cases being filed, and the court just doesn't have the money and the resources to handle the case load. So it puts a lot of pressures on judges to sort of move cases forward. And I have a lot of thoughts on sort of how to fix it. One of the big things is bringing a lawsuit is very expensive. A lot of times, especially in the work that I do, it's very, very feasible to get it resolved prior to filing the lawsuit. So really encouraging or mandating that people try mediation prior, which would be a settlement conference prior to filing the lawsuit.
Yeah. So, what would you like Orange County residents to know about your campaign?
I'm trying to run an experience campaign. Out of a lot of the candidates running, I feel like I have the most experience. I have over 23 years of experience. I also have civil experience. And like I said, over 80% of the cases filed in Orange County are civil. And then I bring a lot just of life experience to the table, which I think is important when you're hearing cases. When you have people come before you, they're people that are going through a lot in their lives. They could have lost their job. They could be taking care of 2 kids. They could be taking care of elderly parents. I'm a mom to a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. I understand that children and people can make bad decisions, and that doesn't make them a bad person. So I certainly feel like context in which actions are committed should be considered. And then I'm also an immigrant. I specifically did not immigrate to the United States, but my parents did, from Pakistan in 1972. And that gives me a lot of perspective. I think there's a lot of people in the county who also, are either children of immigrants or immigrants. The legal system is very confusing for them. Just the process in and of itself, if you don't understand it, is hard to state your case. And so you need a judge that understands that perspective. When I'm mediating, I always, I would say every other case, have somebody that doesn't speak English as their first language. Sometimes people will bring children to translate for them. They will bring a neighbor. They will bring a grandchild. And I understand that. That doesn't take away from what they're trying to say. And I think you need somebody who comes to the bench with that life experience and that sort of worldview.
Yeah. So what experiences do you believe make you uniquely qualified for this position?
So like I said, I have 23 years of experience. I also, in addition to being the special magistrate for 6 years, I was on the Board of Zoning Adjustment for Orange County for 10 years. I was also on the Board of Zoning Adjustment for the City of Orlando for several years. So in addition to my experience and my quasi-judicial experience where I've sat in a position doing the work that a judge does, I've also been deeply committed to the community. I was a Rotarian for 18 years, and our main service project was Orange Center Elementary School. When I was volunteering there, I was the president of the PTA at one point. I started the Student of the Month program. I mentored young girls. We taught a bunch of kids how to swim. We did a summer program. So I've been really committed to the community as well, and I just feel like this is a natural next step for my career.
All right. So what advice would you give young people interested in law careers?
One of the things that I keep saying to the high school kids that I talk to is I call it increasing your surface area. Try as many things as you possibly can in high school to sort of find out what your strengths are. Are you someone that's quick on your feet, that can think under pressure? Are you someone that's good at public speaking? Are you somebody, that is interested in current events and can read something and analyze it and come up with reasons why you disagree quickly? Is that something that you enjoy? So I call it increasing your surface area. I think it would just be try a lot of things in high school. And if you're somebody that likes to read and write, then you would probably be a good candidate for law school. The other thing is, like, a law degree enables you to do a very wide variety of things. You don't really learn how to practice law in law school. You learn how to think. You learn how to read something and think, well, could there be any alternate causes?
Yeah.
Or you read something and you think, well, is this like something else that happened? So it just teaches you how to think, and that's a great degree to have for any career.
Yeah. So if a student listening, today wanted to become a judge someday, what should they start doing now?
So you have to practice law for at least 6 years to be a judge. So if you're a student right now, initially I would say you should think about what it would take to get into law school. That would be doing as many things as you can that require critical thinking. Or speaking, theater, I think, is a really, really great activity to have in high school because it teaches you a lot of things. It teaches you how to go out in front of an audience and, recite something that you've practiced. It teaches you how to interact with other people, including adults and children, without that shyness, and that helps you in a lot of different ways. Model UN, mock trial, debate, advocacy clubs, those are all things that I think kids could get involved with who are interested in being an attorney.
All right, well, on that note, let's take another quick break to pay some bills.
Sounds great.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we are back. So you said that you're also a Florida Supreme Court certified circuit civil mediator. So you mentioned this before, and so what is mediation?
So mediation is a negotiation with a third-party neutral who doesn't know either party, and their sole goal is to narrow the scope of the issues or the disagreement and see if they can come up with a creative solution to get the parties to agree and resolve their dispute so they don't have to go to court. I decided to become a mediator because specifically in condos and HOAs, there is a pre-suit mediation requirement. So that means you're not allowed to bring a lawsuit unless you've at least tried to settle it one time. So I would go to mediations on behalf of my clients a lot of times to settle my disputes, and it was very effective. And honestly, litigation is very, very expensive. Filing a lawsuit is, so it's in everybody's best interest to try at least once to settle it. So because I was mediating a lot, I decided to become a mediator myself. I've really enjoyed it because unlike lawsuits, people are usually very happy at the end of the mediation because they've resolved it. And a lot of times it's just the art of it, I feel like, isn't even practicing law. It's just getting everybody to take things down, like the temperature down in the room. And, what I do and what the process of mediation is you let both sides that are present tell their side of the story. We're all together when they do that, and usually everybody's angry at that point. And then you split the parties up, and then I talk to the parties individually in separate rooms. And we're in the separate rooms, that's when I get them to calm down. Calm down. Let's talk about what's really, really upsetting you. Because what we're looking at filing a lawsuit at isn't worth your time or your money. I know you will be much happier if we fix this today. You walk away, it's over. You don't have to spend any more time and any more money. So in Florida, in order to become a mediator, it's a certification. You go back to school, you do the coursework, and then you also have to apprentice other mediators.
All right. So have your mediation skills helped you outside of your legal career?
Absolutely. I feel like even when I'm mediating disputes at home, you let everybody get
Between
their
the
angry
kids.
out together, and then you separate them, and then you try to speak to each party individually without the other side present to get them to calm down, and then to tell you their side of the
Sibling
story
disputes.
and see if we can come up with a solution that everyone can live with.
All right. So when you're not doing all of these crazy legal jobs, what do you do for fun?
I do a lot of things for fun. Number one, I'm a Disney adult. My family and I have been Disney pass holders probably for 20 years. I like to Disney bound. So I see you have a lot of Star Wars stuff here. We
do.
actually love Star Wars as well. So
Star Trek?
no, I don't like Star Trek, but I do love Star Wars. So we love going to Hollywood Studios. We went on May the 4th, and they were having like the lightsaber salute. It was very exciting. So in addition to being a Disney adult, I also like Harry Potter.
Okay.
So for Mother's Day, we went to Epic Universe, and everybody wore their house shirt, which was super fun.
Now, see, like, how much money do you spend though?
At Epic or at
All of them. Is it a lot? Is it a little? Is it
I
trying
don't-
not to?
I don't buy a ton of merch when we're there. I mean, we actually have the weekday annual passes for Disney, which I feel like is their like best kept secret. We will go on like Friday nights. But in addition to the parks, I also am a runner. So my son and I have done the Track Shack Fanatic series a couple times together, which has been really fun. I love 5Ks, but I have done a couple half marathons
I can't run.
at all.
Well, I mean, I can, but I'd run out of breath really, really fast.
You just have to practice. I have to say, I've gotten both of my kids into running, and they couldn't run a mile before they did either. But 5K,
I could run a mile.
Everybody can knock
I might
it out
die
very
afterwards,
quickly.
but
You have to start by alternating run walking,
Yeah.
and then it becomes much easier. So I'm a runner. I also
do you play video games?
I don't play video
even on your phone?
games. I don't.
Not even like you're sitting in the back of the courtroom, just like waiting for your thing.
I do like New York Times Connections and Wordle, but I don't play any video games.
That's not a video
Yeah,
game.
I feel like my son is really into Switch. He just downloaded a new game, Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi life.
Yeah. So he
That's a
just
fun
did
one.
that one. But no, I don't play any video games, sadly. I like to read. I like to watch TV. I like to Netflix.
What's your favorite book to read?
My favorite book? I mean, my favorite children's book? I love to read like young adult books too. I definitely love Twilight and the Hunger Games series. Those are some of my favorites. My favorite recent book that I just read is I like historical fiction a lot. It's
fair.
called Frozen River.
Ooh.
It's very interesting. It was kind of like post-Revolutionary War, a little bit of love story, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of trial. So I definitely have a book club. I have a lot of girlfriends that live in my neighborhood, so we walk and talk a lot in addition to running. So I love to do that. And then we travel a lot. We went to Japan last year. My family loves traveling. Probably our coolest trips were Japan. We went to South Africa. We went to Peru and did Machu Picchu. So we're big travelers.
All right, so now the questions only get harder from here.
Uh-oh.
All
I'm
right.
scared.
Ready?
I'm
Well, if you
scared.
could go back and talk to your 15-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Stop working so hard. I really hustled in high school, and I feel like it was a lot. Like, I did dual enrollment when I was in high school. I went to a high school that wasn't a great.
I was thinking about that.
I mean, it's a great program, particularly because the county pays for it.
Oh, okay.
But I did my associate's degree in high school, so I was done with like the first 2 years of college by the time I got to college. And then I also worked. I worked at the Gap for most of high school.
You worked and got your AA degree?
Yeah, I did a lot of hustling. I joke with my kids. Kids these days don't hustle as much as us old
Well,
people
no, we
did.
don't want
I
to.
know. You don't have to. That's why.
I was like, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of hustling. My kids are both employed this summer, and they always complain about it.
I'm like semi-employed, but
You have some time.
with this, you know.
Yeah, you have some time.
So, like, what was the biggest mistake that you've ever made in life, and how did it make you a better person?
Biggest mistake that I've ever made in life. Gosh. I'm not sure. How did it make me a better person? Well, I guess registering for to be a little lighter, registering for a trail half marathon. The year of my 40th birthday, I ran a half marathon, and then I got really into running half marathons, and I decided to do a trail half marathon, and that is basically like hiking running. And it started raining halfway through. I fell, twisted my ankle. I was like
The biggest
cursing
mistake?
everything. But then after that, I was kind of like, every time I'm like, if I live through that, I can live through anything. So
Okay, that might
I
be a
kind of feel
mistake.
like if it breaks you down, then it, sort of helps you.
Okay. Now, can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid's show, but that one story, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Go on. You can tell me.
So one story that I'm not supposed to tell you about. Okay.
I won't tell anyone.
I guess I'll tell it because I think I'm far enough away from it. I got a reprimand in college because back in the day, when you didn't have cell phones, you had to use calling cards to call people long distance. It was very hard. It cost a lot of money. So I met my husband when I was 19 years old, and we did not have cell phones. And a friend of mine was like, "Oh, I have this number you can use to call your boyfriend, who's now my husband. That's like 30 years ago. You can use it and it's free. It's like a calling card." And I was kind of like, "What number was it?" And I was a freshman in high school. And I was like, "Okay." So I used it. And I called my husband who was then my boyfriend, for the equivalent of 100 hours over the course of 6 months.
Oh, no.
And then it turns out it was like a campus line, and they traced it back. It was a big thing. Me and my roommate got in big trouble. But we went to a hearing. We got reprimanded. I think they did away with it by the end, but that's probably the worst thing I've ever. I'm kind of a Pollyanna. That's kind of the worst thing I've ever done. I don't drink. I haven't done any drugs, so that was the worst thing I've ever done. Which is why I'm a good candidate to be a judge.
Well, is there anything else you think my listeners, should know about you?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like traditionally people think about judges as old people who, don't live regular lives. I am absolutely a regular person. I hang out with my family. I watch TV. I go for a run. We go to Disney. And all the judges that are on the other side of the bench, if you ever get in trouble, are regular people and will understand you and your side of the story if you tell it. And I think that's what you want as a community.
Well, do you have a website or a social media where listeners can learn more?
Yes. I have a Facebook, which I know young people don't use, but we also have an Instagram, and it is Elect Asima Azam for Orange County Judge. And the election is on August 18th. So if you are young and you are listening and you live in Orange County, tell your parents.
Right.
I will be on the ballot.
All right. There you go.
Thank you so much.
So what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
So one question. What was my favorite? I loved, honestly, it sounds cliche, but I'm very interested in community service. I really feel like it is the key to sort of society, and that's why I love Rotary so much as well, because it's one of the last organizations that really, really promotes this concept of you must give back to your community. So I guess the one thing would be what's one of my favorite service opportunities. And one of the things that my family loves to do is make a meal at the Ronald McDonald House. I just love it. I mean, I feel like the people there, it's just such an easy way to give back. It's fun as a family, and the families there are kind of like on their worst day. So it's, just a win-win for everybody involved.
Well, thank you again for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Sure. I can't do any math, though. You better be the one doing all the math.
I'll be the one doing it.
Okay, sounds good.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810.
Darius's favorite subject. It's Math Corners.
And now it's time for Math Corners. So thank you so much for helping me with Math Corners, all right? So this week, we're just on one-step word problems. And you know what? We're going to talk about a neighborhood improvement project. So sometimes people in a community disagree on like how much money should be spent. So they need to look at the numbers and, you know, decide like what makes the most sense. You know, since you worked a lot of communities, I think that you'd be good at this one.
Okay, I don't know. I'm not good at math.
All right, you ready?
Okay.
So a neighborhood wants to install new benches around a walking trail. The HOA board is considering buying 12 benches. Each bench costs $275. In addition, installation costs are $45 per bench. So what will the total cost of purchasing and installing all 12 benches?
I thought you said you were doing the math.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
All right. Well, first, this is a great, real world math problem because before a community spends a bunch of money on a project, everyone should understand the actual cost. So let's break it down step by step. So first, let's find the cost of the benches. So first, there's 12 benches, and each bench costs $275. So 12 times 275 is about $3,300, so that's pretty easy. And the benches themselves cost that amount. So next, we're going to find the installation cost. So installation is $45 per bench, so about 12 times 45 is $540, I think. So yeah, the installation will cost $540. So now we add the two amounts together, which would be $3,840. So the total cost to purchase and install all 12 benches is $3,840. Now imagine half the neighborhood wants more benches and the other half wants to spend the money on a rock wall. That's why understanding the math is important before making big decisions. I usually disagree with my parents about spending money too, especially when it comes to buying video games. So, do you think looking carefully at the numbers like helps people make better decisions when they disagree?
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the laws in HOAs is you have to get bids from 3 different parties before you actually purchase anything. So you're required to get bids and then compare prices. But the one thing I will point out with HOAs is for something like getting benches, you don't need unanimous approval. I mean, that is not something that an HOA requires. So a lot of people in HOAs think you need unanimous approval to make a decision, and you do not.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your help with Math Corners.
Thanks so much.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the Heart of a Lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. Well, this week, we're talking about nobility. For me, I think nobility is remembering that we are God's special possessions and acting in a noble way, showing courage and honor. The qualities of nobility are goodness, virtue, honor, generosity, and selflessness. So, the other day, I was at a community park with my dad when I saw 2 groups of adults having a disagreement about using one of the picnic pavilions. So, both groups thought that they had reserved it, and they were starting to get frustrated with each other. Voices were getting louder, and it looked like nobody wanted to give in. Then, one of the park supervisors came over. He listened carefully to both sides without interrupting. He checked their reservation records and calmly explained what had happened. It turned out there had been a scheduling mistake. One group had planned a birthday party and the other group was having a family reunion. So after listening to everyone, the supervisor noticed that the birthday party included several young children who had already arrived with decorations and food. Even though the family reunion group technically had the early reservation, they volunteered to move to another pavilion farther away so the children could keep their party where everything was already set up. So they didn't have to do any of that. And they chose to put someone else's needs in front of their own. That was a selfless act. So instead of insisting on what they were entitled to, they chose kindness and generosity. So both the supervisor and the family reunion group showed real nobility by helping bring peace to this situation and putting others first. So they were definitely being lion strong.
Sounds great.
So did you see an example of nobility this week?
An example of nobility. I have to think about it. I've been out in the community a lot at a lot of different things. I would say something really simple. On Tuesday night, I was at the Hunters Creek mayoral forum where they had invited candidates for mayor to talk about their campaign. It was a full house, and a couple gentlemen got up and gave several people who were elderly who were standing their seat. Very simple, but kind of small acts of kindness that keep the world going round.
We should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Asima Azam for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking about today. I think we learned a lot about doing your work as an HOA lawyer, and you're running for being a judge. So after you win, will you come back and be on the show, and talk about it, like what it's be like on a judge?
Absolutely. I would be honored.
All right. Well, do you mind giving your social media website again?
Yes, it is on Facebook. It is Asima Azam for Orange County Judge, and on Instagram, it's Elect Asima Azam for Judge.
All right. Well, also you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at the Tiberius Show, and I would like to thank WWPR 1490 AM, K1998, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air on my show. And please be sure to visit the Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. So, Asima, are you subscribed yet?
I will be tonight.
All right. So Gail Remp says, I love action parks. And Joe Black says, saw you on Liberty Troll. That was cool. Well, thank you, Joe Black. And I will actually be airing that show with Liberty Troll soon. And thank you so much for following. And also, be sure to leave a comment on my videos, and I might even mention yours at the end of the show. And also, be sure to listen to us next on our video show with your host, Tiberius Boy.